Welcome back. In the last lecture, you learned how to store information using variables. But what if you want your program to make decisions like choosing between two options? That's where the concept of control flow comes in. Today, we learn how to teach Python to think using if, else, and elif statements. So I'm in the Visual Studio Code and I will write a simple code to let you know how an if statement works. Let's say that age is equal to 18. Now I will write an if statement, and if the condition specified in the if statement is true, the code will be executed, which I'll write after the if statement. So let's say if age is greater than or equal to 18, after that I'll use a colon and then I'll press enter. It will automatically indent this line of code, and the code that I want to run if the if statement is true will be written inside this indentation. So I write print, let's say you can drive. Now when I run this code, it printed out you can drive. Now if this condition is not met, this piece of code will not run. Let's try that. I say that the age is 16. And when I run this code, the code ran, but it did not print out this piece of code, which is you can drive. It did not write you can drive. This is because the age is 16. Now Python uh, compared 16 with 18. And since 16 is neither greater than nor equal to 18, it did not execute this part of the code. That is why we did not get anything in the output. Now, what if I want to get something even if the if statement is not run? I want it to print out something even if this statement is not run. For that, we'll use the else statement. Now, remember, I press the enter button, it is still indented. I will use the backspace to go back and I'll say else colon and I'll say print. Sorry, I have to use this. Sorry, you can try. Now when I run this code, it printed out, sorry, you can drive. This is because it went through the if statement, and since the condition in the if statement is not true, therefore it did not execute the if statement. Now, what the else statement does is that if the if statement is not run, the else statement will run. So since if statement did not run, the else statement run ran, and therefore we got sorry you can drive in the output. Now, what if you have more than two possibilities? If you have more than two possibilities, you will use Elif statement. So it will Python basically what Python does is it reads your code sequentially from top to bottom, and it will go through all those conditions one by one from top to bottom, and whenever a condition will be met, it will print that part of the code and leaving behind all the other if and elif statements. Now let me show you this in action. Now let's say we have temperature. Temperature is equal to 30. Now I want my code to say, let's say, if temperature is greater than 35, print it's really hot. Now this if statement. Now if I want to specify another if statement, I'll use elif temperature is greater than 20, print out nice weather. And I'll then specify an else statement. Else print it's cool. Now let's go through this one by one. Now, uh, the value of the temperature is 30. Now, first, this Python will run, since Python runs sequentially from top to bottom, first of all, it will come across this statement. If temperature is greater than 35 print out, it's really hot. Well, this is not greater than 35, so it will not run. Now it says if temperature, sorry, if temperature is greater than 20, print nice weather. Now temperature is greater than 20. So this part of the code will get executed. It printed out nice weather. Now, what if I had that temperature of 40? Now think about it. If I have the temperature of 40, it is greater than 35, but it is also greater than 20. So both these statements are true. Which one of these will be executed? The first one. Why? Because Python runs sequentially. Python will come across this statement. If temperature is greater than 35, it will say, okay, 40 is greater than 35. It will print out this statement and it will not execute any of these statements. One if statement is true, it will not execute the rest of them. So let's run this code and see what happens. It printed out it's very hot. It did not print out nice weather because it sequentially runs through the program, and when the first condition is met, it does not print out any of the other elif or else statements. So that is why we only get this output. So these are the most important comparison operators that you will use inside your conditions in your Python code. So let's go through them. This means equal. When you are comparing, you have to use double equals, not a single equal. If you use single equal, it will give you an error. So this means equal to. It will compare two variables or a variable with a number. For example, A is equal to B. So if A is 13, B is 13, this condition is true. If A is 13 and B is 12, this condition is not true, etc. Now, if you use this operator, it means not equal to. So it will say A is not equal to B. So if A is 13, B is 13, it will not execute because this condition will be false. If A is 13, B is 12, A is 13, B is 15, this condition will be true. Now, this one is the greater than symbol. You know, if A is greater than B, if A is 15 and B is 13, this condition is true. Less than symbol, if A is 15, B is 13, this condition is not true because A is less than B. This one which I used in the code that I show you, greater than or equal to. So it will see whether it is greater than or equal to. Like we wrote the code, age was 18. So if the age is greater than or equal to 18, if it is even if it is 18, it will the code will execute. And even if it is greater than 18, the code will still execute. The same is the less than or equal to sign. It will execute if the condition is met and the number we have is less than or equal to the number we are comparing it to. For example, if I say A is 16 and B is 18, this condition is true. If I say A is 18 and B is also 18, this condition is still true. But if I go to this one and I say A is 18 and B is 18, this one is false because it only says if A is less than B. So if B is 18 and A is 17, then it will execute. But if A is 18 and B is also 18, this condition is not true. Now, here, but if A is 18 and B is also 18, since we have also included the equal sign, it will also see whether it is equal. So that is why it is called less than or equal to. So if it is, even if it is equal, both the variables are equal, it will still execute and this condition will be true. Sometimes we want to check multiple conditions. For that, we use and or and not to combine them. These are called the logical operators. For example, I say age is equal to 20 and I say has ID is equal to true. Now I will say if age is greater than or equal to 18 and has ID. Sorry, I have to place the column. Print, you are allowed to enter the gym. Let's run this code, and you can see it printed out. You are allowed to enter the gym because now it has two conditions, and only if both the conditions are met, then it will print out this code. So age is 18 and he has an ID. So therefore, this condition age is greater than or equal to 18. This is true. And this condition that has ID is true. It is also true. Therefore, we'll print out you are allowed to enter the gym. Now, let's do this thing. Make it false. Let's run this code. And it did not print out anything because this condition is false. Okay, so true, and therefore it will run. Now, if I do this, this is also basically the same thing. It will still print out the same. And if I make it false, it will still not print out anything because this is essentially has ID is equal to true is essentially the same as has ID. So whenever we have a variable that is either in the form of true or false, if we just mention its name, that means that if that variable is true, then the code will run. So if I have just written has ID and it is a variable that has the value true or false, it means that it is equal to this. So since this will make just make our code longer, if we write it like this, therefore we use this one. You can use that initially because it is sometimes confusing, but when you get professional and you like write larger pieces of code, it is very messy to write big codes. So we try our best to make the code as small as possible. Therefore, we do not write such things like as is equal to true. It just write has ID, and it basically means the same thing as has ID is equal to true. Now, let's read out the logical operations which we used in the last piece of code. Uh, there are three logical operations generally. These are the AND, OR, and NOT operations. So, and if I combine two variables with and, it means that if both A and B are true, if both conditions A and B are true, then that piece of code will execute. For example, in the code, we said age is greater than or equal to 18 and has an ID, then the piece of code will execute. If either the age is less than 18 or either that person does not have an ID, that piece of code will not run. Now, we have the logical operation OR, and if we combine two variables or two conditions with OR, it means that if either A or B is true. For example, if we combine has ID and age is less than or greater, age is greater than or equal to 18 with an OR operator, even if the ID will be false, the code will still execute because one condition is true. If only one condition is true, then that part of the code will execute if we use an OR operator. Now, let's move on to the NOT operator. This will execute if that condition is false. For example, if I say not user ID, then it will execute only if that condition is false. Let me show you that in the code for better understanding. We are back in the VS Code and let's try all the logical operators. So if I use OR here, now if either this condition or this condition is true, if either of them is true, then this code will execute. Let's run this code and it says you are allowed to enter the gym. This is because this condition, age is less than 18, is still true. If it somehow make this false as well, Let's make it 16 and use an else statement as well to properly visualize what is happening. Print, you can enter the gym. Let's run this code and it's printed out you can't enter the gym. This is because neither this condition nor this condition is true. Now let's make this condition true and let's see what happens. Now when I print out this code, it said you are allowed to enter the gym because this condition is false. But this condition is true. And if either of the two conditions is true, this code will execute because we are using the OR operator. If we use AND instead of it will not execute. So you can see you can't enter the gym. The if statement did not execute because both these conditions should be true in order for this code to execute. And since age is less than 16, it doesn't matter even if the has ID is true. Since this condition is not met and both the conditions should be met for this code to execute, it will not execute. And instead, the else statement will got executed and we'll get this piece of code in the output. You can also place one condition inside another. This is called a nest of conditions. Like you can put an if statement inside an if statement. And it might be a bit complicated, but I'll try to make it easy for you. Now, let's change this one code. Let's say age is 17 and let's change it to has ticket. It's better. Now, we'll remove this part of the code and we say if age is greater than or equal to 18. Now, this is an if statement. Inside this if statement, we have another if statement. If has ticket, then print welcome. Uh, Else, it will print you need a ticket, right? Now, now we can go back and say else print you must be 18 to enter. Let's run this code and it printed out you must be 18 to enter. So what is happening over here? Right? It will first age 17 and has ticket is true. Now it will go through this condition. If this condition is true, then it will go through this part of the code. And if this condition if this condition is not true, it will skip the indented code and it will just go to the else statement and print out this. So since age is 17, 17 is neither greater than 18 nor it is equal to 18. So this part of the code never got executed and we went to this part of the code. Now let's assume that age is 18 and the person doesn't have a ticket. Okay. Now we'll go here and it says if age is greater than or equal to 18. Since it is 18, this is true. Now this part of the code will execute. Now we have another if statement. If has ticket, which is basically is the same as if has ticket is equal to true. I'll use that code so that it is easier for you to understand. If has ticket is true, then it will print out welcome. Let's see. Now, in our code, the age is 18 years and has ticket is false. If age is greater than or equal to 18, since 18 is greater than, not greater than, but equal to 18, this part of the code will be executed instead of the else part. So it will go here and it will see if has ticket is true, but has ticket is false. So it will not run this part of the code. Instead, it will print out the else part and it will say you need a ticket. which happens right here. Let's see, I printed out, you need a ticket. Now, if this is true, now if age is greater than or equal to 18, now it will, since age is equal to 18, therefore this part of the code will be run. Now this code will be executed instead of this else code. So inside this code, it went through this if statement. It has ticket is equal to true. Since has equal to if ticket is true, this if statement is true, and therefore it will be executed. So now we'll say print welcome, and it will print out welcome if it is wrong. You can see here it says welcome because this condition is true and this condition is true. This code. So it can be complicated, but uh, by analyzing it properly and understanding it, you can know how to indent an if statement into another if statement. Now, let's go through a mini challenge. You have to write a program that takes the student's score, which will be 0 to 100 as an input, and it will print out their grade based upon the following rules. If the score range is 90 to 100, it will print out grade A, 80 to 89, grade B, 70 to 79, C, 60 to 69, D, and below 60, it will be F. Now, here is a bonus requirement. If the score is greater than or 100 or less than 0, you'll print out invalid score. Please enter a number between 0 and 100. Now, this is a bonus requirement. If you can do it, well and good. If you can't do it, you should be able to do this. You should be able to write a code that grades the students according to this criteria. And I will show you the solution at the end of the next lecture. Now let's go through the mini challenge that I gave you in the previous lecture. I asked you to write a program where it takes the name of the user, it takes the age of the user, and it prints out how many years it will take them to turn 30. Now, in order to solve your program, you have solve a problem through a program, you first have to break the program down into blocks. So let's break it down into blocks. First of all, we have to take the name of the user. Let's take the name of the user. We will not think about the rest of the program right now. Uh, we have divided it into blocks. First of all, we'll take the name of the user, then we'll take the age of the user, and then we'll subtract the age from 30. And first, we'll execute the first block of the code, which is taking the name. Taking user name. The thing I have written in front of the hash, it is a comment. Python will not execute it. It is basically for the human reader. So let's say username is equal to input, enter your name. Now if I run this code, it will ask me to enter my name, and I say okay. This part of the code is running all right. Now we have to take the age. Take the age. Let's say age is equal to input, enter your, sorry, we have to use the quotation marks, enter your age. Right? Now what we have to do is calculating the years, and what we'll do is we'll subtract the age from the, the number 30. So we'll say years is equal to 30 minus age, and then we have to print out the result. Print, we'll print out username, and then we'll write Now we print the years, and then, so here the years is the variable. Now you see, when I execute this code, it will give an error. Let's say, Shamir, my age is 21, and it gave error. Why? Remember, when I input this 21, it is a string. In order to subtract it from 30, I have to make it an integer. So I use int and this, and when I execute this code, now Shamir 21, Shamir, you will turn 39 years old, which I should write in. Yeah. Now let's execute it. Shamir 21, Shamir, you will turn 30 in 9 years. So our code is running perfectly fine. Now, there is something I want you to, I want to show you. Let's say I run this code, I put my name here, but instead of a number, I put some alphabet in it. Let's say 21. It will give an error because it cannot convert number into an integer. How can we solve this issue? If we want a number, and the user prints out, inputs something like a string like 21, it will give us an error because 21 cannot be 21 written in the form of alphabets, in the form of English letters, cannot be converted into an integer by Python. So what we'll do here? There is a specific code for this. We'll use try, and we'll indent this part of the code. Try this, else quit. So it will be except, not else, except quit. Now, what will happen here? Let's say I write Shamir 21 and it quit. Now what happened here? Basically, by using this try, it will try to convert the input, which is 21, into an integer. And if it cannot convert it into an integer, it will execute this part of the code. We can also write print enter in enter a valid number and then quit. What the quit will do, it will immediately exit the program and the program will run again if we run it. It will not go through all this which is written after this program. It will immediately quit. Let's check it out. Hamir, and I write 21, and it said in enter a valid number, and it immediately quit from the program. So this is basically something you should use whenever you are converting a user input into an integer, because many of the times users will uh, enter wrong form of input. They'll enter strings instead of numbers. They'll enter alphabet, and alphabets cannot be converted into strings. Therefore, your program will break out. It will show an error, and it is not good for the user to see something like this. We want our program to be error free, and in order to make it error free, we'll use this try statement, and this try statement will prevent us against this error. And if it cannot convert it into an integer, it will run this except code, and we'll say print enter a value number. And you have to use the quit command as well. Let's say I do not use the quit command. Let's run this code again. Channel 21. Now it gave an error. Now, why did this error appear? It says 30 minus age. So the error is here, and it says name error. Name age is not defined. It is saying that we haven't defined what age is. Now let's see this code. Basically, what happens is that because of the try statement, it tried to execute this code. But when this code could not be executed because we cannot convert this string of 21, this one, into an integer, therefore it skipped this part of the code because it cannot execute it. So it is as if this code was never present. This piece of code was not present in our entire code. It is the same, this statement becomes the same as this thing. Like we don't even have the age written anywhere in the code because it did not execute. So this code is essentially the same as what ran when we use the try statement. That is why it is important to use the quit command. And why did this error happen? For example, I say y is equal to 30 minus x. Now, when I run this code, it is saying the same error it is giving. Name error means x is not defined. Now, for for you to use a variable anywhere in the code, you first have to define it. If I define x here, let's say x is equal to 5. Now when I run this code, it is asking me name and the first part of the code ran properly, but this part of the code did not. That is the reason why we got an error because we did not use the quit command. So when we use the try command, you have to use the quit function so that it immediately remove it immediately exits from the code. So here I will use the quit command. Now when I run this code and I say show me 21, it said enter a valid number and immediately quit from the code. So this part of the code never actually ran, and because this part of the code was given as the error never occurred. So that is a way to make your code error proof. There are many uh, big companies that hire people who they have the sole purpose of finding such errors in the code. Their purpose is to basically find a way to break the code. So when you write bigger codes or when you're going to be hired by a company, you have to use such things to prevent your code from breaking down. So that is the solution of the many challenges I gave you. And I have also explained a lot of more things. I hope that it was useful for you. I'll see you in the next lecture.